Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on my channel. So I'm going to start reading the Left Behind the Kids series. I already read the series when I was younger, but I want to reread the series, to catch up on the old times, the good memories I had when reading it. It's such an amazing series. This is the first book, The Vanishings. Yeah, the first book of the series, The Vanishings. So let me read the first book, the first chapter, and go from there. Part 1, The Four Kids. Chapter 1, Judd the Runaway. Judd Thompson Jr. always hated having the same name as his father, until now. Every time the phone rang and someone asked for Judd, it was which one, Big Judd or Little Judd. The funny thing was, Little Judd was already taller than his father. He had just gotten his driver's license and the whiskers on his chin formed a thin goatee. He was tired of being called Junior, and if he were never called Little Judd again for the rest of his life, it would be too soon. But now, for once, being Judd Thompson Jr. was working in Judd's favor. This break was meant to be, Judd decided, after days of fighting with his parents about where he was going, who he was with, what he was doing, and how late he would be in. He just happened to be home one afternoon. And his mother picked that day to ask him to bring in the mail. If that improved that this is meant to be, Judd didn't know what was. Judd said loudly at his mother's request. She said he acted like any small chore or favor was the biggest burden in the world. That was exactly how he felt. He didn't want to be told to do anything. Why can't you get it, he asked her. Because I asked you to, she said. Why do I have to do everything? Would you like to compare what you do around here with what I do? She asked, and that began the usual argument. Only when his mother threatened to ground him did he stump out to the mailbox. He was glad he did. On his way back to the house, idly flipping through catalogs and letters and magazines he had found in an envelope addressed to him, was clearly a mistake, obviously intended for his father. He knew that as soon as he saw it. It was business mail. He didn't recognize the return address. Just to be ornery, he slipped it inside of his jacket and gave the rest of his mail to his mother. Well, he didn't actually give it to her. He tossed it onto the kitchen table in front of her, and half of it slid to the floor. He headed to his room. Just a minute, young man, she said, using another of his least favorite names. Get back here and give me this mail properly. In a minute, he said, jogging up the steps. Oh, never mind, she said. By the time you get back here, I'll have it picked up, read, and answered. You're welcome, he hollered. A job not finished is not worthy of a thank you, she said, but thanks anyway. Judd took off his jacket, cranked up his music, and lay on his bed, opening the envelope. Onto his chest dropped a credit card in his name, Judd Thompson Jr. A sticker on it told him to call a toll-free number and answer a few questions so he could begin using the card. The letter told him they had honored his request. He could spend tens of thousands of dollars using that card alone. Judd couldn't believe his luck. He dialed the number and asked his mother's maiden name and his date of birth. He knew not to use his grandmother's maiden name and his father's birthday. This is, after all, really his father's card. Wrong name. Or not. The automated voice told Judd he could begin using the card immediately. He planned his escape. Judd felt desperate to get away. He wasn't sure what had happened or why, but he was sure his family was the problem. Judd's father owned a business in Chicago and was wealthy. His mother never had to work outside the home. Judd's little brother and sister of 9-year-old twins Mark and Marcy were young enough to stay out of his hair. They were okay, he guessed. Mark and Marcy's rooms are full of trophies from church, the same as Judd's had once been. He had really been into that stuff, memorizing Bible verses, going to camp every summer, all that. But when Judd got from the junior high to the senior high youth group at New Hope Village Church in Mount Prospect, Illinois, he seemed to lose interest overnight. He used to invite his friends to church and youth group. Now he's embarrassed to say that his parents made him go. Judd felt he had outgrown church. He had been okay when he was a kid, but now nobody wanted to dress like he did, listen to his kind of music, or have a little fun. At school, he hung with kids who got to make their own decisions and do what they wanted to do. That was all he wanted, a little freedom. Even if they could afford it, Judd's parents recently buy him his own car. How many other high school juniors still rode the bus to school? When Judd did get to drive one of his parents' cars, one of them told him where he could go, whom he could go with, what he could do, and when he had to be back. If all his parents knew what he was doing they thought he was just out with the guys, Judd thought. How he hated his curfew, his parents' constant watch over his schoolwork, they're criticizing his hair, his clothes, and his friends. Worse of all, he was grounded if he didn't get up for Sunday school and church every Sunday. Just Sunday before, he put up such a fuss that his mother comes to his room and sat on his bed. Don't you love Jesus anymore, she asked. What a stupid question, Judd thought. He didn't remember ever really loving Jesus. Oh, he had liked all the stories and knew a lot of verses. But loving Jesus? Loving God? That was for little kids and old ladies. What could he say to his mother? If you want the truth, I only go to church so I can go out on weekends and use the car. That was clearly not what she had wanted to hear. All right, then, just forget it, she said. I can stay home from church if you don't want to go anywhere for a week. Judd swore under his breath. It was a good thing his mother hadn't heard that. He'd have been grounded for life. In Sunday school, Judd copped an attitude. He wore clothes his parents only barely approved of, and he stayed as far away as possible from the good kids. What losers, they never had any fun. Judd didn't smile, didn't carry a Bible, didn't look at the teacher, didn't say anything. When the teacher asked his opinion of something, he just shrugged. He wanted everyone to know he was there, but only because he had to be. In church, he slouched when his father wasn't looking. He wanted to burrow within the himself, just make it through the end of the service. He didn't sing along. He didn't bow his head during prayer. He didn't shut his eyes. No one ever said those are rules. Judd was simply trying to be different from everyone else. He was way too cool for this stuff. As usual, Pastor Vernon Billings got up on what is kicked about what he called the rapture. Someday, he said, Jesus will return to take his followers to heaven. Those that receive him will disappear in the time it takes to blink your eye. We'll disappear right in front of disbelieving people. Won't it be a great day for us and a horrifying one for them? The kind little pastor talked about how important it was for everyone to be sure that his own standing before God and to think of his pray for our friends and loved ones who might not be ready. Just was that they never really believed any of that. He'd had enough chances. At vacation Bible school, he was supposed to pray and receive Christ. He was embarrassed. He told me he already done that at home. At camp a few years later, he felt guilty and sinful when the young speakers talked about church kids who weren't really Christian believers. He had wanted to go forward. He really had. But he also just named Camper of the Week for memorizing a bunch of Bible verses and being the fastest to look at some others. What would people say? Judd knew he didn't have to go forward talking to anyone to receive Christ. He knew he could do it by himself. He could pray sincerely and ask God to forgive his sins and make Jesus the Lord of his life. But later, when the meeting was over and the emotion wore off, he told himself that was something he could do anytime. Judd felt the most guilty when he was 12 years old, and many of his Sunday school classmates signed up to be baptized. Their teacher and Pastor Billings made it clear to them this is an act of obeying Christ, instead of taking by Christians to declare themselves followers of Jesus. As students were baptized, they were asked to tell what they had done when they had received Christ. Judd had done the unthinkable. He had quoted scripture and made up a story about once when he became a Christian, once by himself at camp. He felt guilty about that for weeks, never having the guts to tell his parents or his Sunday school teacher. Yet something kept him from confessing to God and getting things right with Christ. Now he was 16, had thoughts, and if he had feelings and thoughts he believed no one would understand. He was bored with his church, frustrated with his parents, and secretly proud that he wasn't really part of the church crowd. He went because he had to, but someday he would make his own decisions. With a small error in that credit card, Judd Thomas Jr. had his ticket to freedom. He had seen his dad get cash with his credit card at the bank and also the automatic teller machines. He knew that almost anything could be paid for with that magic card. Of course, when the bill would come in, his parents would be able to trace where he had been, but he could have a lot of miles between himself and them in the meantime. For several days, Judd saved cash, which was as much as he could each day from the automatic teller machine. He had the money with his passport he had gotten the year before when his father took him along on a business trip to Asia. He had been miserable on the trip and let his dad know it every chance he got. Judd Sr. finally gave him trying to convince Judd Jr. this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Secretly, Judd enjoyed the hotels, the meals, and even learning how to get around foreign cities with different cultures and languages. But it wasn't about to tell his dad that. Judd's dad had dragged him along only to get away from his new friends, the one his mother called the evil influences. It was also supposed to be a time for him and Dad to bond, whatever that meant. Dad had tried, Judd had to give him that, but they were into no bonding. Mostly it was just Judd scowling, complaining, arguing, begging to go home. At least he got a passport out of the deal. That, along with his new driver's license and that credit card, gave him what he thought was complete freedom. A friend told him they looked old enough to be asked for 21. They should get a fake identification card that would allow him to buy liquor in Illinois. It was cheaper and easier than he thought to because both his driver's license and his passport copied with the new birth date. His plan was to take a stash of cash and go to O'Hare International Airport some night. He would take the first flight he could get to another English-speaking country. Beyond that, his plan was not clear. One thing was sure, he wasn't going to bum around begging for a place to stay. He would live first class all the way. Now Judd was a criminal. He told himself he wasn't scared. Breaking the law only made him more bolder about his plan and began to make up reasons why he had to get away from home as soon as possible. As he made his plans, Judd became more and more angry. He disagreed with everything his parents did or said. He was mean and sarcastic. One day after school, his little brother came into his room. "What do you want?" Judd asked Mark. I just wanted to ask you a question. Are you still a Christian?" Judd lied. "Of course," he said. "What's it to you?" "I was just wondering because it doesn't seem like you're happy or acting like one. Why don't you get out of here and mind your own business? Will you be mad at me if I pray for you?" "Don't waste your breath. You're making Mom cry, you know that? She shouldn't waste her tears either." "Judd, what's the matter? You used to care. Out. Get out." Mark looked pale and tearful as he left. Judd shook his head, clearly disgusted, and told himself Mark would be a lot better off when he outgrew his stupidity. I used to be just like that, Judd thought. What a wuss. Judd stuffed on his favorite clothes in his book bag and jogged downstairs. "Where do you think you're going, mister?" his mother said. "Did she always have to talk like that? Couldn't you just ask a simple question?" I'm going to the library to study," Judd said. "I'll be there till closing, so don't wait up for me." "Since when did you get interested in studying?" his mother asked. "You said you wanted my grades to improve. You don't need to go to this library to study, Judd. Why don't you just stay here? And I need to find some peace and quiet, all right? What we do for dinner? I'll get something out." "Do you need some money?" "No, now leave me alone." "All right, just go, but don't be late. Mom already told you I'm staying till closing, so don't wait up." "Yeah, I know." "Are you meeting someone there?" "No. I've been to find out you've been out with your friends, young man," but Judd was already out the door. At O'Hare, Judd found a flight on the Pan-Continental Airlines that left early in the evening and was scheduled to arrive in London the following morning. His phony identification cards worked perfectly, and enjoyed being referred to as Mr. Thompson. His first-class ticket was expensive, but it was the only seat left from the 747. His first-class ticket was very expensive, but his only seat left from the 747. Judd knew it wouldn't be long before his parents started looking for him. They would discover his car at the airport, and they would quickly find his name on the passengers list of the Pan-Con flight. He had better enjoy his freedom while he could, he decided. He would try to hide in England for as long as possible, but even if he was found and hauled back to the United States, he hoped he would have made his point. What was his point exactly he wanted? He needed his freedom. Yeah, that was it. He needed to be able to make some decisions on his own, to be treated like an adult. He didn't want to be told what to do all the time. He wanted the Thompson family to be able to know that he was able to get along in the world based on his own. He wanted the Thompson family to know that he was able to get along in the world on his own. Going to London by himself based on his own plans ought to prove that. Judd sat on the aisle. On the other side of the aisle sat a middle-aged man who had 3 drinks set before him. Beyond him, in the window seat, a younger man sat hunched over his laptop computer. Judd was stunned by the beauty of the flight attendant whose name badge read Howdy. He never knew anyone with that name, but he couldn't work up the courage to say so. He was excited and pleased with himself when she didn't even ask to see any identification when she offered him champagne. How much, he asked. It's free in first class, Mr. Thompson, she said. He had tried champagne a few times and didn't like it, but he liked the idea of it sitting on the tray table in front of him. He pretended to be on business on his way to London for important meetings. Captain Rayford Steele came over the intercom announcing their flight path and altitude and saying that he expected to arrive at Heathrow Airport at 6 in the morning. Judd Thompson Jr. couldn't wait. This was already the most exciting night of his life. So yeah, that was chapter 1 of book 1 of the Left Behind the Kids series, The Vanishing, pages 1 to 16. And I'm going to update you guys with chapter 2 as soon as possible. I love the series. It's truly my favorite franchise of all time, the Left Behind franchise. But yeah, take care, everybody.